Hey friends, I'm back with part 2 of this first question. Let me remind you what the question is. This person says, Pastor, please just assume that I have no idea what the Sacred Places campaign is. I feel like I missed the initial rollout and I've never been caught up. And I hate to say it, but I also have no idea what the Faith and Action Center is, how it's related to our congregation, and how it's funded. Okay, let's start with Sacred Places. Though, as I said in my first video, these are really parallel roads that came out of the same conversation in 2018. But we've known about the National Fund for Sacred Places for a while. And when we first began some meetings, probably 2017 even, getting together in the chapel, we toured the building together. There were, I think it was deacons and at the time trustees and a handful of different key leaders talking about future of the church, 5, 10, 20 years down the road, and what do we do with the building? So we learned about the National Fund for Sacred Places, which is the only significant fund in the country for grant sources to support actual capital work on churches. So it's not programmatic, it's not outcome based on how many people did you feed or how many lives did you change. It is truly about doing work to preserve physical structures. But they want to see that your congregation has a sense of how preserving that physical structure serves the common good. So you can hear already how there are two roads coming out of this application. Our first investigation into the National Fund, we realized it would require a lot more research than we were prepared to do. That may have been early 2018. I know Nancy Sanders talked with people at the National Fund office, and those folks are so helpful. And we began to look at the application and realize, okay, we got to get bids. We got to start really coming up with a sense of what's it going to cost to fix all this stuff. What are our most immediate needs? What are our priorities? So we applied. This is what happens when I don't use notes. We sent our LOI in early 2019 and were accepted into the National Fund summer of 2019. Then Becky Merriweather and Caitlin Schroyer-Ladera and I went to Chicago just before Thanksgiving 2019 to be trained, which was very much one of those proverbial drinking from the fire hose or fire hydrant or whatever, to be trained in the terms of the National Fund. We're going to get to 5 minutes real fast. The National Fund for Sacred Places is a partnership funded by the Lilly Endowment between the National Trust for Historic Preservation and Partners for Sacred Places. Those are two different organizations. One focused on historic preservation around the United States. One focused specifically on the preservation of faith community structures. So temples, synagogues, mosques, churches. The Lilly Foundation money goes specifically to churches, though they are able with the interest to bring other people into the National Fund who are not part of Christian communities. More than you needed to know. So we applied, we were accepted, came back Thanksgiving or the week of Thanksgiving. I arrived just after midnight and I walked in and my kids had the flu, and then I got the flu, so we had this whole sick week. And then it's Advent, then it's Christmas, then it's Mardi Gras, and then it's what? It's COVID everywhere. So we got slowed down in that process. But our friends with Sacred Places have been so tremendously patient and lovely with us. We are still in the National Fund. We are still continuing our work. This calendar year, 2021, we contracted with Partners for Sacred Places. Remember, I said that there are two groups who make up the National Fund. So Partners for Sacred Places did our feasibility study. That's when people called and talked to you about the church and your feelings about it, and as some of you very much disliked, how much money you think you're going to give. That's Partners did the feasibility study. Partners is also working with us to build out the framework for the capital campaign themselves. But that is a for-pay agreement that we have with them. We have contracted with them to do that. That work starts in September. I have been in meetings with people from the National Trust and Partners, who together make the National Fund for Sacred Places, going over the feasibility study, the proposal that Robbie Cangelosi, our architect, has put together, and proposals. We have 3 bids now for phase 1. Phase 1 of the work is just exterior. It's anywhere that is falling apart outside and water is starting to come in. And we have to do that before we can do anything interior. That's a lot of information. Just getting started. I'll keep answering your questions, but hopefully that gives you a little sense of what the Sacred Places campaign is. And we are about 2 years into it, even though we lost about a year because of COVID. And once the public side of the campaign launches, then we will have another year ahead of us, probably, of that direct fundraising.